We are so fortunate that this afternoon we're joined by 5 panelists who have held the reins during a time that has tried and tested the communications function like never before. And the good news is they're still holding on firmly. Since it is a Friday afternoon, you've seen the screen, you know a bit about our esteemed speakers already. I'd like to invite each of them to just give us a couple of lines, if you could tell us about yourself and your role, and we'd love to hear an answer from each of you to this question. What is your brand's purpose in the world today? So I'll start by calling upon from Cisco, Prerna, Suri.
Thanks very much, Kathy, and thank you, Irene, and everyone who's joining us from wherever it is that you are, and of course to my fellow STEAM panelists as well. My name is Prerna, and I look after communications for Cisco in Southeast Asia, based out of Singapore. And Kathy, I think that's a great way to start a conversation. What does your brand actually mean to the world? And for me, I think, and for a lot of people from Cisco, the one sentence that we can think about is really that we want to connect to the entire world with tech for good. That's really our purpose. We just want everybody on the globe to be connected with the right technology and doing social good while we're at it.
What a wonderful line. Thank you, Prerna. We'll go second to our panelist from AnyMind group. Welcome, Chris Liu.
Hi, so my name is Chris and I lead the communications function for AnyMind group. So our brand purpose is to make every business borderless, not just geographical borders, but also online and offline borders, businesses to customer borders. So we do it through various software in the marketing, entertainment, HR, and direct consumer spaces.
Thank you, Chris. And third up from Motorola, Damian Betty.
Hello, everyone. A pleasure to be here this evening. So I'm Damian Betty. I'm the Director of Corporate Affairs for Motorola Solutions for Asia Pacific. And our brand purpose, I suppose, serving the mission critical industries, including your police, fire and ambulance services who've been at the front line of the pandemic. We like to say we help those agencies in the moments that matter. And I think the pandemic has really proven they've needed us more than ever. So we're really privileged and honoured to help them in their mission to keep our communities safe at this difficult time.
So a prelude to what we'll be talking about today already. Thanks, Damien. And from Oracle, Chua Wei.
Hi, I'm Wei from the ASEAN PR team at Oracle. Oracle has been a brand custodian for data, for a very long time, for over 40 years. And, we hope to, with our solutions, to help people see data differently, new ways, and uncover new insights.
Thanks, Wei. And from Qlik, we have Shelina Mahtani.
Hi, lovely to be part of this panel. I'm Shelina. I look after communications for Qlik in Asia Pacific. For Qlik, our brand purpose is really to help people make sense of the data that they have. So there's no doubt that, data is everywhere. And we help brands to put that data together, analyze it, and actually make use of it rather than for it to go to waste.
Thank you, Shelina. So already, I'm sure everyone can hear, we have a lot of interwoven themes here in the technology field. I'm sure you'll have a lot of questions. I can see some of them are coming in already. So do send us your thoughts and questions on the Q&A, folks. But to get things rolling, I'll ask the question that I suspect is on most people's minds. Amidst the COVID-19 pandemic, I'd like to ask my panelists, how has communications changed in your organization? Shelina, would you like to start us off?
Yeah, sure. So I think there's two things to this. The first is external communications, and the other one is internal communications. So from an external perspective, definitely we've seen that there's been a big shift in the sense that, people don't really care much about what product you're pushing. It's more about what is your brand value in the community, as a brand, as a citizen, right? So for us at Qlik, we've been really lucky to work with, everywhere from like governments to hospitals, things like ensuring that personal protective equipment in hospitals, which was a really big issue back when COVID first happened in around the April period, or escalated, should I say, not happened. Ensuring that they had that sufficiently. So, we had customers who had put data together and they were like trying to figure out things like, Maybe this hospital has more masks, we have more gloves. Can we just do like a swap for the access, and then get that moving in that way? Because originally, without the data, what was happening is there was this one person that was like calling each and every hospital. Do you have? So the data really made it a lot more efficient in that sense as well. So like from an external perspective, definitely the fact that it became more about what value you're bringing to communities. And then from an internal perspective, I think like many companies, we chose for the route of over communication. You don't get that same value being on Zoom the way you do, from a face-to-face interaction. So, for our companies, like we really ramped up a lot of the communications. Our CEO did like a really good job in, explaining step by step what was happening, I think every business was affected during COVID. I'd be quite surprised if there wasn't any. But yeah, so we definitely took the route of over communications from an internal perspective.
Well, I'm quite sure that great job your CEO did had a little bit to do with some of the backup he got in communicating. What about in the building bridges area? Prerna, what's happened for you in the last 6 months?
Yeah, so a lot, Kathy. I guess, just building upon what Shelina also mentioned, the tone has become very important in how we communicate. So it's no longer what we communicate, it's also about how we communicate that has mattered. In the last 6 months, a lot has changed in our industry, a lot has changed with our clients, our partners, our suppliers. So I think it's become much more empathetic to proactively reach out there and talk to them about what's going on within the business, as well as externally what's happening with the rest of the folks as well. So we've taken a very similar route where we've been transparent, we've been very open about our communications. Our CEO, Chuck Robbins, has been very transparent from day one onwards, essentially just taking us through the business resiliency programs that we have in the organization. Internally, I think from a very people perspective, we've also been over communicating. So as you all know, Zoom isn't the best forum to actually build up those connections. So we also did a lot of virtual cocktail hours, like a lot of other companies. We try and ask about each other's families a lot more, a lot of pets, child, sort of Zoom bombings or WebEx bombings in our case, because we use WebEx as our collaborative technology, have been going on as well. So I think just being more human, more empathetic, realizing that not everybody within our company as well as outside the company are going through very dissimilar experiences. That has really shaped our tone and our narrative.
It sounds like it has also forced you, the providers of collaborative technology, to also use it so much that you must be the biggest source of feedback now to your internal development people.
Yes, I mean, our engineers in WebEx, hats off to them. They've been working nonstop since the pandemic started. And it's just incredible how technology can bring people together, especially at such a strange time in history.
Yeah, indeed. We'll move on to another question. We might come back to that and ask the rest of you, because I know you've all already shared with me some really interesting anecdotes about what the last few months have been like. But let's look at it in the tech perspective, since you're all from tech leader companies already. You have to work with counterparts in engineering and research, and like many others who are dialed into this discussion today, you've got other business counterparts in the organization too. So I am curious about that, building on what Prerna was just saying about collaboration. What's it been like, perhaps way for you in having to rely so much on technology for all of this really important connecting?
So I guess, it was actually a chance, where my team and I could get even more closer with our regional counterparts across JPAC. Previously, we only did calls and we weren't so focused on the video, but the whole video aspect of it, and we started doing maybe twice a week, the entire JPAC team for Oracle PR will, get together, and we have maybe funny hat competitions where we see each other on videos with funny hats. So that has got us closer. With our stakeholders as well, it's even easier because now nobody can fly, really. So it's gotten even more easier to get them on a Zoom call. It's just, everyone's gotten very Zoom out, I would say, at times. So it's good to take a step back sometimes, and, just chill, don't overlook the attire, right? A lot of us come in our pajamas for our team call, actually.
You really do.
I do. I personally do.
Would anyone else like to lob in on that? I'm sure you've all been collaborating like mad. Any other anecdotes you might like to add?
I'm just wearing shorts right now, just underneath this. I'm just letting you guys know. So totally with you, Wei, on that.
Good of you to be honest about that. Yeah. Shelina, did you look like you might have something to add to that?
Yes, I agree with Wei. I actually feel that it's been a lot easier, surprisingly, just because everyone's a lot more available right now. And it's a lot easier to just speak to, you mentioned like technical engineering teams and all of that, like they're just a phone call away. No one's traveling, it's just a lot easier to communicate. And I think the technology has been a big part of that, but I think also the relationships that, people have built prior to the pandemic is also has a part to play, but definitely everyone's a lot more available, I feel.
Yeah.
So let's back it up to the core function and talk about brand stewardship, communications to preserve and build the image of the organization. So we all know that we're going to continue to have disruption, and COVID-19 isn't even the only disruption. The media industry has been disrupted in many ways in recent years. So how are you dealing with this level of disruption while still doing, continuing with your role as a brand steward? Damien, I wonder if you'd like to lob in on that one.
Sure, Kathy. I mean, it's been constantly evolving, and we've all had to adapt and evolve like every other function in every other organisation and the world in general. I feel like the pandemic started with the idea of us becoming the explainer, and, they started to realise the value of corporate comms, particularly as it relates to internal communication, becoming a translator for employees. What does it mean in my country? What does social distancing mean? What does the pandemic mean? What are the rules I have to follow? Has it impact my role? That kind of thing. But very quickly, we had to trace a cycle aligned with the rapidly changing nature of the media cycle and the political cycle. So we went from the infection phase to the recovery phase to the economic output, how that was massively reduced. For us as corporate comms professionals, we've always had to try and find a way to intersect that rapidly changing cycle. And I think the message here is one about adaptation and evolution. I'm sitting here in Melbourne, Australia, and we're probably in week about 20 odd of the lockdown. And we're all getting used to this idea of things that we used to do at big trade shows, like bring journalists in, engage with them, see them face to face. We just had our first ever virtual media roundtable a couple of weeks ago, and our executives felt a little bit, not confident 100%, but we got through it. We're all learning and adapting together. And I think it builds on Shelina's point from earlier about the relationship of trust. If you've got that trust bank, we're starting to draw down on a few credits now, Kathy. That's where we're at.
And what do you think? Is that virtual media roundtable the means of the future for connecting with media?
Well, look, I think it is. I think increasingly, as we adapt and evolve our functions, as we become more skilled and learn different ways of engagement, we have to get more comfortable with this virtual environment. It is very different. You can't read the cues like you used to when you looked at people straight in the eye and got a feeling for what they were feeling. We are learning as we go, and we are going to give the best advice we can possibly give to our leadership about how to do it.
I sort of agree with Damien actually on that, because who would have thought just maybe a year ago that we wouldn't be able to have that opportunity to have those engaging conversations. Being a former journalist myself, I know how important that is, because if you put a face to a name, even though you might not be able to meet them physically now, I still think that virtual collaboration, or even just having those virtual roundtables, it's become so much more important. And it's become a humbling experience, to be honest, even for a comms person and for leadership as well, to be honest, because now I think corporate communications is really right up there with strategy, with finance, with legal, with business, with product. So I think it's been a very humbling experience for everybody across the business. And as strategic communicators, it becomes that much more challenging, but also a great opportunity for us to think about creative ways of engaging with people, just like how what Damien said, sitting in Melbourne, lockdown, day 20, but it's almost like this. I hate to call it the new normal because I hate that phrase. It's very overused, but this is reality. This is the new reality that we're all facing.
Sure.
Very well
Every
said.
one of you has a major event that you would normally have been involved with in the first half of this year. You might have taken media to experience a conference or gotten them together in some way that you just weren't able to do this year. Am I right?
100%.
And media have written about this too. There was a Financial Times columnist who wrote about how she really misses all those little summertime social get-togethers where she gets to drink champagne on the bank's bill and try to pry information out of her contacts. So it works both ways. Wait, did you have something else you wanted to add to that?
I would say yes. I think that virtual meetings are a new way of communicating. Virtual, media events. We recently held our first one as well in July, and it turned out to be quite good. If I would say so myself, we get quite a good turnout and good coverage as well. I think media are interested, or they have no choice. But I would be cognizant of the fact that we are in ASEAN, and a lot of things has to do with face-to-face. I think in certain markets like Thailand, Vietnam, those that are recovering, they do need that personal touch and that face-to-face contact. Yeah. So I think it's different in all parts of Asia. Maybe in Singapore, it's easier to get a virtual media roundtable than it is even to have a physical media roundtable in Singapore. It's harder to get attendance for a physical media roundtable in Singapore than a virtual one, I would say.
Yeah,
it depends on the culture.
Sorry. A client of mine was saying the other day about they're in Vietnam, and she was saying, we're just groupies here. We just really like to be in a group. So yeah, some challenges there, but that may evolve too in the coming months. What about on the skills side then? So we're still talking about your role, your crucial role in helping the organization to communicate. Think about the skills now that you've been drawing upon in the last 6 months. What's become mission critical now? Chris, you want to offer us some thoughts on that one?
Okay, I wouldn't say like becoming mission critical right now, but just in general, because the company is in so many different industries like marketing, entertainment, and the whole group of them. But what is very, very important for us is the ability to wear multiple hats and being able to switch hats very quickly, because we are working across, say, advertising, we're working across publisher monetization, content, a whole range of different types of content topics. So being able to understand and execute across these spaces is very, very important for us. I would also say the other thing would be the ability to extract stories from the organization. So yeah, like in fact, half of my team are former journalists. So yeah, that is very, very important, especially when there are teams that they don't know that they are sitting on gold, but we come in, we talk to them, and then we realize, okay, this is actually gold for the market, for the media. So that's very, very important for us.
So how have you trained your team to then do that level of listening and turn it into material that you can use to connect with audiences with all the limitations you've had in the last 6 months?
Okay. The good thing is that most of the team joined before the pandemic started. But yeah, what we do every week is at least an hour of training on a whole range of different topics, be it like building up a nose for news, being comfortable with data, like learning how to extract data. So yeah, we do very, very regular training all the time.
Wow, not bad. An hour a week for your team alone, you mean?
Yeah, just for my team.
There's something for all of us to think about. Yeah. Okay. Anyone else on skills that you found have become extremely important these days?
I think adaptability is very important. Like what Chris said, right? We wear multiple hats. We have to go across different groups of people. At the same time, adaptable to the challenges. The media pool is shrinking. We may not go the traditional route of, media. I know in EMEA or in US, they're looking at influencers. The market is not so developed in Asia yet in terms of influencers, but there's different routes that you need to go to for B2B tech, right? And I would say it's how to simplify B2B tech for the everyday person so that it was assume it's part of tech, consumer tech, any single innovation.
So as we speak about that, I'm sure everyone who's logged in listening and all of you as well have had plenty of challenges though, positioning yourselves competitively, getting the kind of exposure you want from media. We were talking about this, Damien, a little bit earlier, and how do you innovate nowadays so that you still make sure that you do get that share of voice, that you get that clarity in what is really quite a crowded media landscape. Want to offer some thoughts on that?
Sure. Yeah. And by the way, you're absolutely right. It's such a saturated market right now, and there are so many brands saying more or less the same thing. So we have to work hard to differentiate ourselves when it comes to our brands. And, you only need to read how many articles are out there about the use of the word unprecedented. Maybe we should try words like extraordinary or uncommon as an alternative. But jokes aside, I feel like, in a way, the way that we engage in organisations and the attitudes that we have, we almost need to become these investigative reporters where we look really hard for opportunities for our brands to intersect with what's happening in the economy and society more broadly. So I guess my piece of advice to people in the profession is to try and be different, try and find a way, particularly for technology companies, to map to what's going on in the broader economy and society. And always try to look for the trends that are identifying those things and find a way through there. Because it's hard to get media attention. I think Weiwei made a good point before. The media market is contracting. A lot of people have lost jobs. We've even seen more relaxed standards when it comes to TV media. People setting up in their home bedrooms, kids running in the background, that kind of thing. So there's a new opportunity to engage in a new way, but being real and being authentic and not using the classic cliches are a good way to start.
So have you bought different color hoodies for your senior executives so that they can do multiple different things at home?
I like the fact that I don't know if we'll see another tie on an executive again after the pandemic. I think that's a good thing. I think everyone's becoming more relaxed, more understanding, and there's a higher degree of empathy for not only the role of journalists in the media, which are under a lot of pressure, but executives, but consultants, and everyone in the PR and communications industry coming together. They're understanding this thing, and we have to work a way through it together. And kind-heartedness is the way, as schmaltzy as that might sound.
Yeah, there has been an interesting shift that way, hasn't there, though? For years, if you did work from home, there was such pressure to still make the entire scene seem as though you were in the office. Now suddenly that seems to be gone.
Yeah, for sure. I love the understanding. I mentioned earlier I'm in week 20 odd of the lockdown here in Melbourne. I've got 2 young boys, 8 and 11 years old. I'm homeschooling them. I've had many a meeting and journalist interview where they've run in the back door here and interrupted me. But we just have to be real and authentic and understanding and appreciate we can't have this perfectly staged environment. We're all figuring it out together. So that's a good thing.
While we've been talking, we've had a question come in from IPRS President Marcus Lowe. Good to have you on board, Marcus. I'm thinking, Prerna, perhaps you'll be willing to take this one on. Marcus says, or asks rather, how has COVID-19 shaped the sense of purpose for your respective companies? And what is PR's role in conveying that sense of purpose to your stakeholders?
Yeah, great question, Marcus. I think even before COVID-19, Cisco was known as a technology company that does good tech, that doesn't, sort of sell people's data and things like that. But COVID-19 just pivoted us even more sharply in that direction, where it's not just about the products that we're selling, it's actually about the people that are using our products that matter the most to us. So it might be a small mom and pop joint in the south of Thailand that might have been affected by this. And I think the company really was cognizant of the fact that people's economic situations, our customers' economic situations were changing rapidly. So a couple of things that Cisco did was we started giving our products on credit, some of them actually pro bono to hospitals in Wuhan when COVID-19 actually when we actually found out about COVID-19. So we helped out hospitals in China, in Indonesia, in Vietnam as well. And that program is still sort of progressing. So I think that social good element that's been a part of Cisco's life, we call it conscious culture, which means just being very conscious of your surrounding and of the people that you're working with. That just got heightened, I would say, 100x more with COVID-19.
Well, let's face it, we all know the world needs a lot of this. So I'm going to shamelessly invite all of my panelists to flood their organizations and tell me what other sorts of efforts, be they social responsibility or others that relate to purpose, have you been involved with in the last few months? Just, I'm sure those who are listening would love to hear a few examples. What are organizations doing? Anyone? Oh, Colin. Okay, Damien.
I can go. So I was recently nominated to become we've got a corporate competition called 20 for 20 at Motorola, where we have to give 20 hours of volunteering service. So I've been nominated the captain of the corporate communications team internationally to make sure that we give that minimum set of hours. Yeah. And the thing I really like, my role previously, I did a lot of travel, particularly in Asia, but also I have international stakeholders. So I would go to the UK and our headquarters in Chicago. I no longer have a way to connect with them physically, but we're all connected by this idea of corporate giving. And we've all found ways to identify local needs in our communities. So one that I'm working on at the moment is helping a local automotive franchise that is laid off a lot of people as a consequence of the COVID-19 pandemic, put an application forward to an automotive industry body. It's completely unrelated to our profession or anything like that, but it's a small way that I can make a contribution and give. And sharing stories like that I think has really helped us as a profession is understanding that it impacts the economy and it impacts the society in many different ways. So we're all finding different ways to make a contribution. And that's a lovely thing.
Reminder too, that as a comms person, you have some really useful skills, don't you?
Yeah, well said. We all do. And I think the adaptability, and there's a point there, Kathy, about self-belief, helping this automotive business with its business plan, its strategy. We might think of ourselves as strategists, but I think we've really proven ourselves that we are through this pandemic. And increasingly, they're looking to us to provide some leadership, not only in our function, but beyond that in terms of corporate strategy, business development, and where to next. That's a great opportunity.
Great question. How about at Qlik, Shelina?
So for us as well, like the sense of data for good has been front and center all the time, but as Prerna mentioned, it's gone like 10x. Just being relevant to customers and just continuing to be, I think relevance is the right word, where data is helping in like so many parts of different businesses, whether they're businesses or NGOs or other areas as well. So I think for Qlik, like we continue to give free software for organizations that need it, NGOs that need it, and we've seen that sort of escalate over the last couple of months as well. So yeah, I think the brand purpose has solidified throughout the process, and it's been actually really, really interesting to see.
I see Chris nodding as well. At AnyMind Group, what's happened for you, Chris?
Okay, so back when the pandemic started, we worked with quite a number of influencers. So one of our many businesses is influencer marketing. So we worked with influencers to drive awareness around how people around social distancing, around being clean, just general cleanliness. So that was one of the things that we did. Yeah.
Excellent. And Wei, how about at Oracle?
At Oracle, you know, from the bottom to the top, we are all very customer focused. And that's not only talking about us, talking about customer stories, but also from the leadership on customer being customer focused itself, right? And their needs, you know. Because of that, one of our solutions is actually a HCM module to help HR managers. So we open up a module called Workplace Safety that helps you track, you know, staff coming in and out of the office, that sort of thing. So we open that for free to all our customers as part of, how we're helping and our purpose itself.
So as we've been talking, we're starting to get questions in on the Q&A chat. So panelists, I'm going to read out one that we just received. It's quite interesting, related to what we were saying about collaboration a little bit earlier. Can the public expect new or improved features as the world communicates more and more on VC platforms like WebEx, Zoom, BlueJeans, etc.? Prerna, would you like to take that one?
Yeah, sure. I mean, honestly, that's a great question, because let's face it, you know, we've always, in fact, just before this call as well, we were all sort of thinking about background noise, thinking, can you actually hear me? You know, it sort of like reminds me of my grandparents' era when the telephone had first come in, and they would actually speak very loudly on the phone, thinking that the louder they get, the more people might actually listen onto them. And I feel like we're in a similar stage in history where we're sort of experimenting with that. But I think coming back to the question, yes, Cisco, for instance, is investing heavily. So just very recently, about 2 weeks ago, we acquired a company called Babel Labs, and they sort of work on enhancing voice quality when you're actually having conversations like these. And think about it, if you're having 300 people on the same call, not everybody is on mute. Somebody's cooking, like me, for instance, or a 3-year-old jumps in. So just to make sure that, you know, that voice quality gets even better, we sort of acquired that company. So I think, yes, there will be a lot more innovation now that this becomes our new reality. And as much as we might like it or hate it or in between, we just have to adapt, and we have to sort of think that this is it. You know, how do we sort of improve from here?
We have another interesting question here about engaging employees. One of our participants writes, I'd like to find out how each of you have been engaging employees during this challenging period with more staff working from home. I mean, apart from town halls, what have you done to bring employees together virtually? We heard a little bit of reference to this earlier, so maybe you could just share something that we haven't already talked about, folks. Wait, I see you nodding a lot.
Yeah, at Oracle itself, they have wellness days, you know, where we have, you know, we focus on meditating, or, you know, they put up courses on that. At the same time, they also put up courses, you know, how to improve yourself, improve your resume for internal transfers, that sort of thing. Because, you know, they know people are concerned, and at the same time, you know, they want us to feel relaxed and collaborative at the same time. So I'm surprised that they have changed, you know, the HR team has done so much work and changed the physical wellness day to a virtual one.
Wow. Anyone else?
Yeah, we recently had a virtual wellness week in Singapore. So again, like what Wei said, you know, we had a Zumba instructor who had come in, and it was quite cool because everyone was sort of shimming it, or trying to, at least in my case, you know. And we also had like cooking classes, healthy cooking, because let's face it, you know, sitting down for so long is unnatural for anybody. And I think we all just need a bit of push. And I think all kudos to our HR teams as well. They've been really trying to rally up enthusiasm for these events, although it is very challenging to do it. But I think at least we're making an effort in that direction.
Great to hear. Okay, let's come back to the business side a bit. We do have many members of IPRS who are students. And sometimes our students are our most active with questions and comments. And frankly, nowadays, it's easy for a student to be feeling pretty disillusioned about what's ahead. What will the job climate be like? Will there be jobs for them? What effect will COVID-19 have on their careers? So I wonder if I could ask maybe a couple of you to give some advice to students. Chris, would you like to start?
Okay, yeah, so my top advice would be get experience in a PR agency. Like, no matter what, PR agency is best place to learn the trade. Like, also, not just learn the trade, but also understand what you want to do in PR in your career, your PR career. Because in agencies, you can work across like multiple industries, multiple accounts, and you can actually understand what suits you the best. What are you interested in? What are you passionate in as well? So yeah, top tip, get experience in an agency.
The PR agency is very often the boot camp, isn't it?
Yeah. If I could add to that, I suppose, I appreciate it's a difficult time for PR graduates. It's very uncertain at the moment. We don't know what's coming next. If I rewind my career, and I've been a bit of a journeyman myself, I took my first job in advertising sales in a newspaper in the hope of becoming a journalist, like many of us. So I got there through the side door, but I was prepared to take a job that wasn't necessarily what I wanted at the time. So I think there's something about, being prepared to accept. Even more than that is the attitude and behaviour that you bring to your first role. So on the proviso that you're always listening, you're always prepared to learn from those around you, whatever environment you're in. On the proviso that you're always curious, wanting to learn more. And thirdly, that you bring great energy and attitude. I don't think there's any job in the world that you won't eventually get if you truly aspire to it, if you bring those attributes.
So thinking back to the example Chris gave, people often do say that PR consultancies are great places to earn your stripes and learn the business. But indeed, we do find also that a lot of young people say, man, this just isn't worth it. This is too hard. This is too demanding. I have to keep track of too many different clients, or things are coming at me from all directions. It can be pretty tough to keep that attitude you were talking about, Damien, and stick with it in the early months.
Yeah, it can be hard to stick with it. And I think, one of the arts to that is finding someone who you can appreciate and latch onto and learn from. In effect, a mentor, formally or informally, if that's in that environment, someone that you feel you can relate to, and try and learn from them and try and demonstrate some empathy for what they're going through and get them to appreciate and empathise for what you're going through, because it's very new to you. At the end of the day, even though we're in these virtual environments, the human condition will prevail, I believe. So look for people that are like you and that feel like you, and see if you can find a way forward, and like I said earlier, be prepared to start somewhere that isn't exactly where you charted your course.
Nice. Shelina, what would you add to this?
So I graduated during an economic crisis as well. So my first role was actually in marketing, although I studied comms throughout. So, I mean, honestly, to be a good comms professional, you are going to have to, be good at a lot of things. You have to be close to the business as well. So I wouldn't be overly concerned if your first job isn't in comms. I think, whatever role is available, that, is what you're interested in, I would definitely say just go for it. And then eventually, if you're suited for comms, you'll make your way there, and that's completely fine. But comms is a great profession, so congratulations on making that choice. And the reality is, yes, the market is not great now, but it will rebound, right? It's not going to be like this forever. And, once there will always be a demand for comms people, whether it's product or M&As or, new startups that are being created right now that need to IPO at some point. It's not a role that's going to vanish anytime soon. So, just stick with it. And, once the economy recovers, just go for what you want.
Thank you. Okay, so thinking about those challenges and about what it will be like in the coming months for young people having to do everything virtually, including build their own reputation, I'm wondering about technology. So what role can tech play to help enable us to do comms better? Chris, would you give us any thoughts on that one?
Okay, so marketing right now has a lot of technology available in terms of targeting users, in terms of tracking, measuring users as well, and results. So that has also caused a lot of pressure for the comms side of things, because marketing can track everything we can somewhat track. But on the other hand, there are platforms like Telum, Cision, Meltwater. Those platforms can also help to drive a lot of efficiency and effectiveness for whatever we're doing, be it reaching out to the right journalists or monitoring the news. So I would say that tech is kind of benefiting PR or comms already, but there is still a lot more that can be done, especially in terms of measurement.
So how many of you would put a hand up to say tech already plays an important role in your function now? Okay, all right, so I'm getting a lot of you, but Shelina, not yet. Why not?
No, it does. Sorry, late to the game.
Okay, all right. Okay. So you're all using tech in some form for the communications function.
Yeah.
If you had a wish list, what would you add? What else could tech do for you now that maybe it isn't doing yet, or maybe you have an inkling that's being worked on? Anybody want to add to that?
I think Chris made some really good points about the way the marketing function has been well serviced by technology to help measure, to generate leads, all that sort of stuff. I still feel that after many years in this function, in this profession, that we're not well serviced by technology that actually help us measure the quality and performance of our function. You know, I think we all know or work to very different methods, whether or not that's media measurement, whether or not, you know, it's the antiquated idea of advertising equivalent ratios. But I still think our function hasn't found the perfect measurement system. We still have a long way to go. And the trouble with it now, as a consequence of the pandemic, is, as we all know, media newsrooms are being contracted. There's fewer journalists out there. Some of the trade titles we used to go to are no longer there. The environment's frequently changing. So how do we get to a position where we actually find a measurement tool that works for us? Right now, I'm not sure we will. But I think by the same token, the respect that we've earned from our companies and from our clients earns us the opportunity to advise them, you know, this is the path forward, this is what I see. So I think there's an opportunity for us to actually give some advice around that. But, you know, if anyone figures out measurement after the 25 odd years that I've been in the function, please let me know.
So for any of you attendees who are from the measurement side or the tech side supporting PR, there's a call out to do something more. Okay, all right, so I think we have time for maybe one or two more questions. We have one that came in from a participant. I'll read it to you folks. As the calendar year comes to an end, how will managers and supervisors appraise and assess their team's performance with working from home, even as everyone struggles to hold on to their jobs? What about addressing team motivation during this extraordinary time? So I am not entirely sure from reading this whether our participant is asking you about what you're doing for your own teams in this regard, although I'm sure you're all doing annual reviews or performance reviews for your own teams. But you might also be involved in advising the organization, advising the leadership on how they also continue to motivate. So I think it would be very interesting to hear anything along those lines. Would anybody want to put a hand up first? Offer some comments on that?
Yeah,
wow,
I can.
We've got our people thinking here. Shelina, thanks.
So I think it is a difficult time, right? So empathy continues to be like the most important thing I feel right now. You know, people are juggling thousands of things. It's not going to be possible to be like, where's your 8 hours worth of work or whatever it is. So I think staying close to, you know, your teams is super critical. Knowing what's going on in their lives, and, you know, like with my team as well, what I love is, although our team meetings are only an hour long, we spend a good like 20-25 minutes talking about, you know, everything that's going on in our lives and, you know, things like that. And I feel it just keeps the team that much closer. And then you also get to see like what are the stressors that people have that are not, you know, related to work as well. And I think just having that overall empathy works, and it keeps people motivated because they know that people care. And I think that's the most important thing right now, beyond like the usual metrics.
Yeah, I think just to add to that, like exactly that, I think there's going to be a lot more empathy. The fact that, you know, teams don't see each other, we just need to make that much more effort to actually find out from each other how they're doing. Is everything okay at home? Just pleasantries that you would do as a nice human being, but just making more of an effort to do that. And I think and I'm not plugging, I know it seems like I'm plugging Cisco a lot during this conversation, but it's also because I love the organization. But we have been given me time, so a day off on a Friday, I kid you not, 3 times in the past 6 months, just because our CEO thought that all of us were working incredibly hard, and it was taking a toll, frankly, on everyone, from senior leadership to middle management to junior management. So I think that just having those kind of authentic gestures, they would matter a lot more during such a time than, say, empty promises. Yes, you'll get a bonus, but you won't. So I think just those small gestures make a big difference in people's lives right now.
While we're in the plugging business, I will mention that empathy has come up so much lately as a theme. I'm sure you're all reading about it as well. The International Day of Listening, which is on the 17th of September, is devoted this year to empathy. And we like to think that we know what empathy is, but if you go to the International Day of Listening site and learn a bit about it, you'll find that, in fact, we could all use a little bit more of it. So Shelina introduced empathy. Damien, you were talking earlier about human kindness. I'm kind of hearing a theme here.
Yeah, I think everyone's made some great points. And Prerna, to your point, I'm actually on a day off today, believe it or not, from Motorola. Probably my 3rd or 4th that's been granted this year. And I guess it makes me think, to a degree, when you're in these jobs that you love and you totally love the brand that you represent, there's never any such thing as a day off, because you'll do anything for them. And that's a really good company culture. I feel that I'm in a really good place right now because I'm at a company that does something special for first responders and those on the front line, with technology that actually enables them in this rapidly transformative environment. But this idea of empathy and understanding, it's even harder to get a handle on when we're in these virtual environments and we're looking at each other through screens. So there is an art to it. I feel as communications practitioners, we actually need to ask our professions, and that's why the value of organisations like IPRS come to the fore, because inside our 4 walls of the organisation, we might tell each other we've done a good job, or we might feel that way, but have we actually consulted more widely? And I just wanted to highlight that as a point. That's where PR organisations have an incredible role of bringing us together beyond our organisation, to the point that we can actually have those discussions, talk about best practice, talk about thought leadership, talk about empathy and anything. And it just makes me grateful to be with this esteemed group of panellists today, having that type of discussion.
So to your point, Damien, a convening body like IPRS can bring people together. And thinking back to what Wei was saying earlier about how it's probably easier to get a group of Singapore journalists online like this than it is even to get them into the room. Is it possible that institutes or organizations like IPRS will even start to take on a different role or new elements to that convening purpose? What do you think, folks? Where's it going?
I suppose, in my case, I'm the former chapter president of the IABC here in Melbourne, the International Association of Business Communicators. And back in the day, I think, 3-4 years ago when I was president, the big measure that we had was how many people could we get to an event and how much could we contribute in terms of professional development and all this really good stuff, in terms of access to talent, giving people a network to talk to. One thing I think that's forgotten that I just wanted to highlight, I forgot earlier, is that we're all volunteers, right? IPRS, IABC, the panelists that you see today, we're all giving our time freely because we actually
Some of you giving it on your day off.
Exactly. And that's the kind of people we are. But we're also incredibly energised by the idea of the next generation of PR professionals coming through, helping us, teaching us new methods and mechanisms. I think that's what it's all about. It's a sense of community. That's what we're all part of, and that's the real honour of today, and I'm sure all the panellists feel the same.
I think IPRS's role right now becomes even more important because we all are facing isolation in our little bubbles as well. We might reach out to the same echo chambers that we're used to on social media. So I think just having a body like this where you bring in diverse perspectives, look at this panel, right? I mean, it's across the board, the experiences, the the geographies that we've all sort of worked in as well. So I think it becomes even more important and significant in a time like a pandemic, which, all kudos to IPRS for even doing this. And Damien, I think you get the bonus points today for your day off and volunteering for your day off. So I'm just putting it out there. But
and it's already what time at night in Melbourne?
It's 10 to 8 p.m. So I will be having a drink after this.
He's giving us his Friday night as well, Prerna.
But no, I think Prerna makes a really good point. And one I'd add to it in terms of when I thought about the profession and, being the president of IRBC, what I guess I was really looking for beyond the volunteerism and the board coming together, planning next events, planning professional development, was the give back from the broader members of that group. So I guess that would be my final message, to make sure that if you're part of IPRS, you appreciate and you value what you've got by giving into it, because it's a give economy, if you think of it that way. And to Prerna's excellent point, now that we're in this virtual environment, it counts even more. So please give.
It counts even more, and it's also kind of easier to do now, right? It doesn't require you to be gone from the office for 3 hours to have one of these networking luncheons.
And I think even, especially if you are a student or a graduating student looking for a job, right? This is the perfect avenue to look for future mentors or future opportunities. Just a conversation with a mentor, it's good enough in the industry. Even at our level now, I think mentorship is becoming incredibly important, networking and mentorship, especially in isolation.
Yeah, indeed. We all still need that contact every day, don't we? Yeah. Yeah, you can learn a lot from dialing into moments like this. Has this group of 6 ever gotten together physically? We haven't.
No.
And we might never have otherwise. But now we've had a really warm and also thought-provoking conversation. We've each dialed in from our own base. We've launched into our Friday night quite well, I think. And all thanks to IPRS for that. Thanks, of course, to our attendees as well. We appreciate not only your questions and comments that have been coming in, but just having you there. To those who promoted the event online and passed it around on LinkedIn. And of course, IPRS will carry on to put material from this on LinkedIn. So do keep an eye out for that, folks.